A major update has just dropped for Misery, including a new biome, 5 new mutants, and over 50 new items. I'm going to break down the patch notes, my first impressions, and give you my overall take on this update. Full disclosure, I have about 150 hours of playtime on the game. I've played about 6 hours of this new update, and mostly play solo, so my criticism and analysis is more from a solo point of view than it is, say, a hardcore or multiplayer point of view. Now let's get into the patch notes. Very first thing on the agenda, the new biome, Factory. You can meet this biome on 15 plus shinings. Bunker is pushed to 25 plus. So it looks like the devs intend this to be a mid to late game biome, and they want the bunker to be the final late game biome. In terms of the limited hours I had available to actually play this new biome, I would say it's a surprisingly small biome for an outdoor biome, which isn't necessarily a bad thing considering that the other outdoor biomes have a lot of empty space, empty land, whereas the MEGAFACTORY has quite a bit to explore. You have an underground section, a main ground floor section, and some interesting areas in the buildings upstairs. So while the surface area of this map might seem smaller, I think the devs did a really good job of utilizing the space. Now, while this might certainly be the most interesting biome to explore, I can't say it's all that rewarding, considering most of the boxes I've come across have been empty, and the only noteworthy loot I've found have been a Christmas tree and some of the various UN items. 5 new mutants, all inspired by ideas from the community, have also been added in this update. In the limited time that I've played, I've only come across 3 of them, and only know of 4. The 5th one, I'm still not certain of what it is. I can only speculate it's the giant catfish. However, I will do my best in giving you my thoughts on the 3 that I have encountered. The first one being the Graft. This is a fleshy humanoid enemy. When killed, splits into 2, and then when those are killed, they split into 2. So essentially you have to kill 7 enemies. It's mostly just a bullet sink and doesn't pose much of a threat, but it could still get out of hand if they were to swarm you. The second enemy I've encountered is called the Assembly. It looks like a fleshy armored vehicle. It doesn't appear to have any ranged attacks, although admittedly I tried not to get too close to it because it does explode. Be careful because its blast radius is very big and it does a lot of damage. The third and last enemy I have encountered is called the Chuverla. It's probably one of the scariest looking ones. It kind of looks like a cross between a gorilla and a spider. It appears as if it nests up above and is capable of pouncing at you from great lengths, so be prepared for that. As for the 4th and 5th mutant, I've yet to see them. I could only imagine the 4th one would be the Crab, only because of the creatures parts list in the trader. And I still don't have any information on the 5th mutant. There is a new POI, or place of interest, in the bunker biome, and despite my best attempts, I have yet to come across it. It also doesn't help that within the first couple of days of said update, you were unable to explore the bunker due to a glitch preventing you from moving. Thankfully, this was later fixed in a hotfix. There is a new threat along with the mutants. The UN is trying to deliver some supplies to their maggots, but the armed forces will not tolerate it. Do not try to reach enemy supply crates or you will be struck by artillery. I have encountered the UN. Unfortunately, they are in their zombie form, and I believe if you get too close to their supply crates, a bomber plane will fly ahead and try to drop artillery on you, so be careful of that. Along with the UN and their supplies, over 50 new items have been added into the game, including clothes, armor, items, decorations, and furniture. As somebody who is trying to build the greatest bunker, I definitely appreciate some of the furniture items they've added. But as for the clothes, armor, and decorations, I haven't seen too many of those. It might have to do with the fact that I think the boxes are glitched in the factory, as many of them are empty. I have definitely seen some new items though, mostly food. The UN items have been added, and canned water has made its circulation into the other biomes as well. Headshots now inflict more damage. Good luck getting headshots when you're getting bullet flinched. This is a very cool one for the melee weapons. You can now block attacks with said melee weapon. This is a good way to bring melee weapons back to the forefront. Speaking from personal experience, I've mostly been using my ranged weapons. New hit sounds I really haven't noticed, but what I have noticed are the new crafting stations, the butcher table, where you can craft taxidermy figures from slain mutants, and the construction station, where you can craft anything for building and decorations. The butcher's table took me a while to craft, having to find a fairly obscure item in the hunter's knife. It wouldn't be too difficult to find if the pool of items wasn't so vast and random. I've yet to craft anything in the butcher's table because the requirements is pretty hefty, and especially hefty now that they've reduced the creature part drops. Yes, absent from the patch notes is the fact that creature part drops are no longer guaranteed. Just as an example, while the Swamper would always drop a Swamper arm before this update, there was an instance where I killed 5 and couldn't loot a single one. As for the construction table, they moved the concrete walls, floors, door frames, window walls, stairs, all the old construction stuff that was available on the regular workbench over to this table, as well as added some new doors and walls. Quality of life improvements and building mechanics, which in all honesty I really didn't notice, especially from someone who takes decorating their bunker to a whole new level. I would have liked to maybe have seen a new building mechanics snap-on, tile-based system, but as far as I can see, it is still a free-forming system. Associated with the construction table are the wallpapers and paints. You can now craft various wallpapers and decorate your bunker, as well as paint/decorate each side of a wall separately, and decorate default walls and floors for better bunker design. Their definition of better is a little different from mine, considering we were already able to change the wallpapers on these concrete walls. But now, if you already had them on your walls, they removed them and are now forcing you to craft them separately. I'm not too pleased at the thought of having to waste more resources to replace the wallpapers I already had. You can now craft custom signs for better navigation with the construction table, of course, and that was actually a really well-received update for me, considering I can now label my warehouse aisles. There are new electrical items, advanced splitter, and advanced combiner with more nodes for advanced engineering. Wish we would have got this sooner, before I did all my wiring. I shudder to think of the work I'd have to do now. But the look of the regular splitters and combiners have also changed, as well as the military grades. You can now sit on chairs, beds, benches, and yes, toilets. Huge W. Dwarves can now walk in the bunker and use vertical ladders. As somebody who has a collection of dwarves, that is appreciated. However, I've noticed that when I leave the bunker or reload the save, the dwarfs go back to their stationary state, and you have to once again approach them and let them roam. Guests joining the server now have a timeout for picking up items and destroying structures. Don't really have any experience in that, but it sounds like it's good for anti-griefing, so that's a dub. Now you can turn off and on player collision in the settings. Again, not much experience in that, but also sounds good. Now you can tune the aim down sight sensitivity separately from the mouse sensitivity. As somebody who has a very high mouse sensitivity, this was greatly appreciated. The next ones here are mostly bug fixes. Stacked items counter enlarged for better readability, weapon animations and reload bugs fixed, except for the Kypris one, the bug where you reload your Kypris and it no longer fires. You have to swap to a different weapon, swap back to it, and then you can shoot it. Workbench items no longer disappear when loading a saved game. That sounds annoying, glad they fixed that. Anomaly settings in custom mode have been fixed. I've never done custom mode, so. Bug fix, starting a hardcore mode game would not affect previous saves. Text input fields, server name, code, etc. bugs have been fixed. That's all good news. And gas masks overlay fixed. Now, if this is what I think it means, it's actually a bad thing, at least for me. Because with my gas masks, I've noticed that the HUD has changed, where I now see a crack in my screen and some rain droplets. It was very annoying and very hard to get used to when I first started the game. And try as I might, I did not find a setting to change that HUD. This is a bug I'm surprised it took them this long to fix. Bomber plane sound effect fixed. No more silent bombings. I can't tell you how many times I've died because of that, and I can only imagine the frustration of those who lost hardcore saves to that. And finally, various bug fixes and improvements, and the announcement of GeForce, later in August. As someone who has an NVIDIA graphics card and is not impressed with the graphical optimization of this game, we'll see how this GeForce plays out. Even though the patch notes end there, you'd be surprised to hear that there were actually some changes in this update that they did not list. Some good and some very bad. Let's start with the good. You now completely use all of your stamina bars, as opposed to saving the last few and forcing you to walk instead of sprint. Rubles are now stackable up to 1,000 instead of 100. Thank goodness, that saves a lot of inventory space. According to a hotfix, they've announced that they have now added a way to buy plastic. That is huge for me as somebody who is going to need a lot of it for their bunker build. It was about time too, considering it was one of the last resources you couldn't buy in the trader. They also added new creature drops to the creature drop table, and depending on who you ask, that could either be a good thing or a bad thing. Speaking of creature drops, they changed the drop frequency. Prior to this update, every wild animal and mutant you killed had all their drops guaranteed, and now, not only are there new creature parts in those drop tables, they are no longer guaranteed, and the probability of you getting 0 drops from a kill is actually very likely. Not only is your creature drop table now more infrequent and diluted with new creature parts, they are also worth less. A tremendous amount less. This was one of the more egregious changes they decided not to list in the patch notes, as they have nerfed the sale prices of all the creature parts, and yes, the bread as well. I was hoping with the nerf in the sale prices of creature parts, they perhaps would have buffed the sale prices of junk, but to my surprise, they remain the same, as well as the absurdly high prices for the ammo and guns. My heart goes out to anyone still needing to spend that absurd amount of money on buying their guns, as now the tried and true methods of making money in farming wild animals and mutants and baking bread have all been cut down to their knees. As for my first impressions of playing this update, well, the devs couldn't have said it better myself. That was a huge update, and there are definitely some rough edges here and there. That's a bit of an understatement. I found that this update was a mixed bag, and the longer I played it, the more I realized I don't think they were prepared for an update of this scale. First and foremost, my major gripe with this update is that it was very heavily concentrated and front-loaded on one specific biome, and not a lot of the new additions in this update made their way into the other biomes of the game. For example, 5 new mutants were added, and as far as I could tell, all 5 of them are exclusive to the factory biome. I think the game could have benefited more by having at least 1 or 2 of those mutants actually make their way into some of the other biomes, because if you think some of those biomes were desolate now, oh boy, they are very desolate in comparison to the factory biome. I also think they could have taken a page from other games in which when they add a new biome in a game where biomes are randomly selected for you, if they were to increase the odds of you actually seeing said biome, it would have gone a long way. Because for this update, I had to do a lot of reloading to try to find the factory, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this. There was a stretch in my stream for 2.5 hours I've never once encountered the factory. I think they should consider, in the late game, having the ability to choose between at least 2 of the biomes each day, especially if they plan on adding even more biomes. If you're going to dilute the biome pool, it's going to be harder and harder for players to find a particular biome they want, especially if that biome has exclusive items. That being said, when I actually did get to experience the factory biome, it was actually pretty fun, for the most part. The devs also have it right here when they say the factory is designed to be the most combat-heavy biome. Our advice, don't pick every fight, but always be ready to send some lead down those factory halls. When I first entered this biome, it was a lot to handle all at once. I made the mistake of assuming this outdoor biome would behave like other outdoor biomes, where if I were to take a loud shot, only a few enemies in the very near vicinity would flock to me. However, that was not the case, as many enemies from across the map flocked over to the entrance of the bunker. With enemies that explode in a large radius, and enemies, when dead, explode into more enemies, I very quickly realized stealth was the best approach, and using the silence VAL was the way to go. For a long time, I mostly used the AK-74 for its damage and the higher magazine, but now it seems this game is really enforcing the use of the VAL, and not only the bunker, but now the factory as well. Aside from that, I found that this biome had the best exploration, by far compared to the rest. It was actually a thrill to explore the underground tunnels, as well as parkour up some pipes to get into an upstairs area in a building. The new mutants, as well as the addition of the UN, has really made this map lively and tense, but I feel the addition of bandits on this biome to be a little out of place and a little overwhelming. Also, from a lore standpoint, I never saw the mutants attack the bandits. In fact, they all ganged up on me and chased me down. Before this update, I felt the game started to suffer from a lack of threatening enemies. And while this update certainly added a ton, I just wish they were more evenly distributed and balanced. For example, for a biome that claims to be combat heavy, I feel like the enemies are pretty weak. Aside from the assembly explosions, I feel like the rest of the enemies don't do that much damage, and they go down fairly easily. In comparison to something such as the twins, that takes multiple magazines to put down, the rest of the enemies on this biome require a lot less damage. Which is kind of ironic considering they lowered the twins' creature parts prices very low in comparison to some other creatures you could kill that take way less ammo. Especially the ghoul, who usually goes down in a few bullets, but for some reason has one of the highest sell prices, and the newly added ghoul part. I can kinda understand wanting to make the late game biome in the bunker produce loot drops that are worth more, but if that's the case, I think the creatures should match in difficulty as well. But that just brings me to one of my biggest criticisms of the game, the balance. There are a lot of areas in this game where the balance is off. Let's take a look at the current state of the game's economy. We can compare the sell prices, which they nerfed, from this patch, to the sell prices before they nerfed them. Can you honestly say wasting ammunition on a boar for a chance of getting a boar head valued at 10 rubles is worth doing? Or how about growing 4 wheat, processing it in the chemical table, and cooking it for 7 rubles, 3 more compared to if you just sold the wheat separately? And on the opposite side, do you feel it's fair you have to pay 260 rubles for 1 pack of ammunition? The game is essentially telling you that 26 boar heads is equivalent to 1 pack of ammunition. I understand trying to push your player base into making their own ammo, but that's just ridiculous. Nerfing creature drop rate tables, diluting it with more parts, and nerfing their sales prices, in combination with nerfing the bread sale price, and keeping the buy prices of everything else the same, has completely ruined this game's economy. And don't even get me started on the imbalance of resource costs. Take for instance this door. 30 scrap and 20 iron bars, and this door doesn't even lock, nor have a unique opening animation. Or how about a metal door costing less resources than a sign? It was even worse before I started editing this video. They released this update thinking 20 scrap was an okay cost for a sign. All this just leads to my biggest concern. Who playtested this? Within the first 2 hours of me playing this update, I've noticed severe game-breaking bugs, balance issues, enemy AI issues, and many more head-scratching problems that could have been identified within an hour playtesting this patch. The fact this patch got released in this state leads me to believe they didn't playtest this at all. The quality assurance is very bad, and perhaps they bit off a little more that they could chew in this update. I mean, I commend them for adding a lot of this stuff, but at the same time, I feel like with the size of their development team, they would have been better served cutting this update up into smaller separate updates and releasing it bi-weekly. That way, you have more time to playtest what you're introducing, more time to listen to feedback, and more time to implement hotfixes. I know it's more flashy and eye-grabbing releasing a major update, but when your game prior to this update already has some glaring issues, I think it's worth the wait of implementing smaller updates and actually fixing the foundation of your cake before you decide to plop on more icing. I waited weeks for this update, thinking a performance optimization was on the way, as well as a more finely tuned building system, the two of which would have really helped my base building series, which you can start watching in the link down below. But as of right now, I'm pretty disappointed. And I know I'm not alone. I, as well as others, have noted a huge FPS dip, and not only in the bunker, but in certain biomes as well. My computer should be more than capable of handling what this game throws at it, and yet, in many instances, I'm getting drops as low as 17 FPS. So in conclusion, While I appreciate the ambition of the devs to want to add a lot more and make this game exciting, I think they should get their priorities in order. Balancing the game and optimizing its performance should be at the forefront of their minds, and put off diluting the item pool, nerfing drop rates and sale prices, at least until most people can get a stable 60 FPS on this game. Well, that's going to be it for me. I'm sure I've missed more balancing issues and other problems with this patch and the state of this game, and I certainly could have gone more in depth with the issues I've already brought up. But in order to prevent this video from being over an hour long, I think this should suffice. If you want to hear me go more in depth with a deeper analysis of this game, you can watch the 2 VODs in the links below, where I played this update as soon as it came out. What did you think of this update? Did you agree with my analysis? Were there any points I missed? Let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. If you want to see me play more video games, subscribe to me on YouTube and follow me on Twitch.